Captain Mordok stood before the viewing screen of his ship's Silence Hunter and watched the strange vessel drift near the purple nebula. The alien craft looked ugly and crude compared to the smooth curves of his own ship. Metal plates covered its surface like patches on old clothing. Strange symbols marked its hull in white paint that looked fresh against the dark. Gray metal. Science Officer Veltar worked at his station behind the captain. His long fingers moved across the control surface as he gathered data about the unknown ship. The readings made him frown. This vessel was much larger than most ships they encountered, but it seemed to use very basic technology. Captain, the alien ship measures 800 meters in length, Veltar reported. It appears to run on simple fusion reactors. The weapons I can detect are basic kinetic projectiles. Nothing that should concern our shields. Mordok nodded and adjusted his position in the command chair. His people had ruled this part of the galaxy for over 300 years. They had conquered dozens of species and enslaved many more. Most aliens they met used technology that was centuries behind Corthany science. This new ship looked like another easy target. How many life forms aboard the vessel? Mordok asked. Scanning shows 847 organic beings, Veltar answered. Their body temperature and size suggest they are similar to the mammals we have encountered before. The captain smiled and showed his sharp teeth. 800 beings would make good slaves for the mining colonies. The ship itself might have some useful raw materials once they stripped away the primitive technology. Open a communication channel, Mordok ordered. We will give them the standard warning. Lieutenant Kexra activated the communications array. The viewing screen changed to show the transmission symbol of the Corthony Empire. Mordok straightened his uniform and began the speech he had given many times before. Unknown vessel, you have entered territory controlled by the Corthony Empire. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your crew will be processed according to Imperial law. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your ship. He ended the transmission and waited. Most species either surrendered immediately or tried to run away. A few attempted to fight, but their weapons could never penetrate Corthony shields. This encounter would probably end like all the others. Minutes passed without a response. Mordok began to feel annoyed. Some species needed more convincing before they understood their situation. Captain, we are receiving a transmission, Kexra announced. Display it, Mordok commanded. The screen flickered and showed the face of an alien creature. The being had pale skin and small eyes that looked almost friendly. Hair covered the top of its head in a brown color. When it spoke, the words came in perfect Corthony language. Greetings, Captain Mordok of the vessel Silence Hunter. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Use Guardian. We appreciate your welcome to this region of space. However, we must respectfully decline your boarding request. Mordok felt shocked. This alien knew his name and the name of his ship. More disturbing, it spoke Corthany with proper grammar and pronunciation. Only a few species had ever learned their language, and those had taken decades to master even basic communication. How do you know our language? Mordok demanded. The alien smiled, and the expression looked genuine rather than threatening. We have been studying your people for some time, Captain. Your expansion into the Outer Rim sectors has been quite impressive. We particularly noted your victories at the Tylaxian colonies and your successful siege of the Mordeth shipyards. Now Mordok felt true alarm. Those military operations were classified information known only to high-ranking Imperial officers. How could this primitive species have learned about them? Veltar, run a deeper scan on their vessel, he ordered, quietly. His science officer bent over his instruments while the human captain continued speaking on the screen. We understand that first contact situations can be tense. Perhaps we could arrange a more formal meeting between our peoples. We have much to offer in terms of trade and cultural exchange. You will surrender your ship, or we will destroy it, Mordok growled. He was tired of this strange conversation. The human's expression did not change. "I'm afraid that won't be possible, Captain. Our mission requires us to continue our current course. However, we would be happy to share some information about our defensive capabilities to avoid any unfortunate misunderstandings." Before Mordok could respond, his communications panel began receiving data files from the human ship. Kexra looked at the information with wide eyes. "Captain, they are sending us technical specifications for their weapons systems. These readings cannot be correct." Mordok studied the data that appeared on his screen. According to the files, the human ship carried weapons that could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Their defensive systems included something called adaptive armor that could change its molecular structure. Most impossible of all, they claimed to have weapons that could crack planets. "This must be false information, meant to frighten us," Mordok said, but his voice sounded less certain than before. The human captain seemed to hear his thoughts. "Captain, I understand your skepticism. Perhaps a small demonstration would be appropriate. Veltar's scans should show you that we have powered up one of our defensive systems." Veltar checked his instruments again and made a sound of surprise. "Captain, there is a massive energy buildup in their forward section. The readings are unlike anything in our database." On the screen, the human captain maintained his friendly expression. "We have activated just 1% of our main defensive array. Your sensors should be able to detect the energy signature. This is the level we use for deflecting small asteroids during our exploration missions." The energy readings on Veltar's screen climbed higher. If these measurements were accurate, the human ship was generating more power than some Imperial battle cruisers. That level of energy focused through their so-called primitive weapons could indeed cause serious damage. "Captain Morrison," Mordok said slowly, "what exactly is the nature of your mission in this region?" The human's smile became slightly less friendly. "We are explorers, Captain. We seek new worlds and new forms of life. We come in peace to all who offer peace in return. However, we are also prepared to defend ourselves and others who cannot defend themselves." Mordok realized that this first contact was not proceeding according to plan. This species was not behaving like the primitive aliens he had expected. They knew too much about Imperial operations, and they possessed technology that seemed far more advanced than their crude-looking ship suggested. "Stand down your weapons," Mordok ordered. "Already done, Captain." "We never raised them in the first place," the human replied. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation with cooler heads. We have much to discuss." The transmission ended, leaving Mordok staring at a blank screen. For the first time in his career, he was not sure how to proceed with a first contact situation. These humans had managed to surprise him, and that was something that had not happened in a very long time. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of the UES Guardian toward the medical bay where Dr. Nathan Cross was working. The ship buzzed with quiet activity as crew members went about their duties. Children played in the recreation areas, while their parents worked at various stations throughout the vessel. This was not just a military ship, but a home for hundreds of families exploring the far reaches of space. Dr. Cross looked up from his computer terminal as Morrison entered the medical bay. Charts and alien language patterns covered multiple screens. Around the room, the doctor had been working for 3 days straight to decode the Corthoni communications they had been monitoring. "How much do we know about them?" Morrison asked. Cross rubbed his tired eyes and gestured to the displays. "More than they realize we know. Their language follows patterns similar to several species we encountered in the Vega system. Once I identified the root structure, the translation programs did the rest. They call themselves the Corthaean Empire, and they have been expanding into this region for decades." Morrison studied the information on the screens. Battle reports, conquest records, and slave transport manifests painted a clear picture of how the Corthoni operated. They were not explorers, like humans. They were conquerors, who saw other species as resources to be harvested. "What about their military capabilities?" Morrison asked. Impressive but predictable, Cross replied. They rely heavily on energy shields and beam weapons. Their tactics follow standard military doctrine with little room for improvisation. They expect enemies to behave in logical and predictable ways. Commander Lisa Bennett entered the medical bay carrying a datapad. She had been analyzing the alien ship's movements and preparing defensive strategies since they first detected the Corthony vessel. Captain, I've completed the tactical analysis, she reported. Their ship is well armed, but it follows conventional design principles. Heavy weapons, strong shields, but limited maneuverability. They built it to overpower enemies through superior firepower. Morrison nodded. This matched what they had learned about Corthony military philosophy from their long-range reconnaissance missions. The Empire had grown powerful by using overwhelming force against weaker opponents. Lieutenant Alex Turner joined them from the communications center. His job was to handle all contact with alien species, and he had been preparing for this conversation since they entered Corthony's space. Captain, their ship captain just transmitted an ultimatum demanding our surrender, Turner reported. Standard intimidation tactics. They expect us to be frightened by their show of force. Morrison smiled. The Corthony were following their usual pattern, exactly as human intelligence had predicted. Open a channel, Alex. Let's give them our response. They moved to the main communications center, where Turner activated the transmission array. Morrison sat in front of the camera and composed his expression to look friendly but confident. Behind him, the bridge of the Guardian showed busy activity as crew members worked at their stations. The transmission opened, and Morrison saw the alien captain on his screen. The Corthony looked exactly as described in their intelligence files. Tall, lean, with sharp features and predatory eyes. His uniform indicated high rank in their military structure. Greetings, Captain Mordok of the vessel Silence Hunter, Morrison began in fluent Corthony. He watched with satisfaction as surprise flickered across the alien's face. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel U's Guardian. We appreciate your welcome to this region of space. However, we must respectfully decline your boarding request. The alien captain looked shocked that Morrison knew his name and spoke his language. This was exactly the reaction they had hoped for. By demonstrating knowledge they should not possess, humans immediately established themselves as something more than just another primitive species. Morrison continued the conversation, casually, mentioning specific Corthony military operations that were supposed to be classified. He watched the aliens' growing alarm with professional satisfaction. The Corthony relied on intelligence superiority to maintain their advantage over other species. Learning that humans already knew their secrets was deeply disturbing to them. Dr. Cross had prepared detailed files about Corthony expansion activities, trade routes, and military capabilities. This information had been gathered through months of careful observation and analysis. Human exploration ships were equipped with advanced sensors that could monitor alien communications from incredible distances. When the alien captain threatened to destroy the Guardian, Morrison remained calm and friendly. He offered to share information about human defensive capabilities, something that would demonstrate their confidence while providing valuable intelligence about human intentions. Chief Engineer Maya Rodriguez had prepared a series of technical demonstrations that would reveal just enough about human technology to make the aliens reconsider their aggressive approach. The Guardian systems were designed to be underestimated by hostile forces while maintaining the ability to defend against much larger opponents. Morrison signaled Rodriguez to activate one of their defensive arrays at minimum power. The energy buildup would be detectable by alien sensors but would not appear threatening. This demonstration served multiple purposes. It showed that humans possessed advanced technology, while also indicating they had much more power in reserve. The technical specifications that Turner transmitted to the alien ship contained accurate information about human weapons systems. However, they only revealed a small fraction of the Guardian's true capabilities. The files described kinetic weapons that could achieve relativistic velocities and defensive systems that could adapt to different types of attacks. What the data did not reveal was that every system on the Guardian had been designed with multiple purposes in mind. The ship's manufacturing capabilities could produce new weapons and equipment from raw materials in a matter of hours. The crew included specialists who could modify existing technology to meet changing tactical requirements. Morrison explained, their mission is exploration and peaceful contact while making it clear that humans were prepared to defend themselves if threatened. This message was carefully crafted to appeal to any sense of honor the aliens might possess while warning them against aggression. The conversation ended with Morrison maintaining his friendly demeanor while leaving no doubt about human resolve. He had accomplished several important objectives in one brief exchange. The aliens now knew that humans possessed advanced intelligence gathering capabilities, sophisticated technology, and the confidence that came from being prepared for this exact situation. After the transmission ended, Morrison turned to his senior officers. How do you think they'll respond? Commander Bennett consulted her tactical analysis. They're confused and concerned. This didn't go according to their standard first contact procedures. They expected easy prey and found something much more complicated. Dr. Cross added his assessment. Their psychology profiles suggest they respect strength, but only when it's demonstrated clearly. They need time to process what just happened and decide how to proceed. Morrison nodded. The next few hours would determine whether this encounter led to peaceful relations or armed conflict. Either way, the Guardian and her crew were ready for whatever came next. They had spent years preparing for contact with hostile alien species, and the Korthani were responding exactly as human analysts had predicted. The ship continued its slow drift near the nebula, while both sides considered their next moves. Morrison ordered the crew to maintain normal routines while keeping all defensive systems ready for immediate activation. If diplomacy failed, they would need to demonstrate that human, peaceful intentions were backed by the ability to defend themselves against any threat. Turner monitored alien communications while Rodriguez made final preparations to their most impressive defensive demonstrations. The real test of human preparedness was about to begin, and Morrison felt confident that his people were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead in this first contact with the Korthani Empire. Fleet Admiral Zixith arrived in the Korthani battle group 3 hours after receiving Captain Mordok's emergency transmission. His flagship Divine Retribution was the largest vessel in the Imperial fleet, designed to intimidate enemy forces into immediate surrender. Beside it flew 6 heavy cruisers and 12 escort vessels, more than enough firepower to destroy most planetary defenses. The Admiral studied the tactical display, showing the human ship still drifting peacefully near the nebula. The vessel appeared unchanged since the first contact incident, but something about the situation troubled him. In his 40 years of military service, he had never received a report quite like Mordok's initial assessment. Science Officer Veltar, report to the flagship immediately. Zixith commanded through the communication system. Minutes later, Veltar materialized on the Divine Retribution's bridge through the matter transportation system. The science officer looked nervous as he approached the Admiral's command station. His earlier confidence had been replaced by uncertainty and confusion. Admiral, I must admit that my initial scans of the human vessel may have been incomplete. Veltar began carefully. Zixith's eyes narrowed. Veltar had served as his chief science officer for 12 years and had never shown uncertainty about technical analysis before. Explain your findings in detail. Veltar activated a holographic display showing the Guardian's technical specifications. The human ship measures exactly as I reported, but the internal structure is far more complex than I initially detected. What appeared to be simple fusion reactors are actually contained stellar cores generating massive amounts of energy. The Admiral studied the energy readings with growing concern. How much power are we discussing? Enough to accelerate projectiles to 20% of light speed, Veltar replied. Their so-called kinetic weapons could penetrate our shields and cause serious damage to our hulls. At maximum acceleration, these projectiles could crack planetary crusts. Zixith felt his stomach tighten. Weapons capable of planetary destruction were supposed to be beyond the reach of primitive species. The Korthoni Empire itself had only developed such capabilities within the last century. What about their defensive systems? The Admiral asked. Veltar manipulated the holographic display to show the Guardians' hull structure. Their armor appears to be composed of programmable matter that can reshape itself at the molecular level. It could potentially adapt to different types of weapon attacks in real time. I have never encountered technology like this before. The implications were disturbing. Adaptive armor meant that conventional Imperial weapons might become less effective during prolonged combat. The Korthani military doctrine relied on overwhelming enemies quickly before they could adjust their tactics. Conduct the deepest scan our technology allows, Zixth ordered. I want to know everything about this vessel and its crew. Veltar returned to his instruments and began the most comprehensive analysis in his career. The scanning arrays of the Divine Retribution were designed to penetrate enemy defenses and reveal hidden capabilities. What they discovered about the human ship would change Korthani's understanding of alien species forever. The deep scans revealed that the Guardian was not primarily a military vessel. Large sections of the ship contained living quarters for families, educational facilities for children, and research laboratories for scientific study. Yet every single person aboard showed military training and psychological profiles, indicating they would fight desperately if threatened. Admiral, the crew composition is highly unusual, Veltar reported. They have 847 people aboard, including 215 children. However, every adult shows combat training and enhanced physical capabilities. Zick frowned. Military vessels did not normally carry families into dangerous situations. Either these humans were recklessly naive, or they possessed confidence in their defensive abilities that seemed impossible given their apparent technology level. The scans revealed more disturbing information about human physiology. The adults showed signs of genetic modification that enhanced their strength, reflexes, and resistance to radiation. Many also displayed cybernetic implants that improved their sensory capabilities and reaction times. These beings have modified themselves for survival in hostile environments, Veltar continued. Their bodies can function in conditions that would kill most organic species. They appear to be designed for extended space travel and combat operations. But the most shocking discovery came when Veltar analyzed the ship's manufacturing capabilities. The Guardian contained automated factories that could produce complex technology from basic raw materials. Given enough time and resources, the crew could manufacture weapons, armor, and equipment to meet changing tactical requirements. Admiral, this vessel is essentially a mobile civilization, Veltar said with obvious amazement. They can survive independently for decades while maintaining full military capabilities. I have never seen anything like this design philosophy. Zix studied the data with growing unease. The Korthani Empire controlled other species by maintaining technological superiority and limiting their access to advanced manufacturing. A species that could produce their own equipment independently would be much more difficult to conquer or control. The psychological profiles of the human crew revealed even more disturbing information. These beings showed a species-wide willingness to sacrifice their lives to protect others, combined with remarkable creativity in finding solutions to impossible problems. Their historical records indicated they had survived multiple extinction-level events through adaptation and determination. What about their military doctrine? Zixth asked. Veltar displayed tactical analysis gathered from the ship's computer systems. Their approach to warfare is completely different from our own. They assume every engagement will require maximum effort and prepare for scenarios that most species would consider impossible. The human battle plans showed preparations for fighting against enemies with superior technology, larger numbers, and better resources. They had developed strategies for converting civilian equipment into weapons, using damaged ships as kinetic projectiles, and fighting effective rearguard actions while evacuating non-combatants. Most disturbing of all, the scans revealed that the Guardian had been transmitting detailed intelligence about Corthony capabilities to other human vessels throughout the galaxy. The Empire's expansion activities, military strengths, and tactical doctrines were now known to an unknown number of human commanders. How many other human ships are in this region? Zixth demanded. Unknown, Admiral. Their communication systems use quantum entanglement transmission that is extremely difficult to track. They could have dozens of vessels monitoring our activities without our knowledge. Zixith realized that the Corthoni Empire faced a completely new type of threat. These humans were not a primitive species that could be easily conquered. They were a civilization that had prepared for exactly this type of encounter and possessed the technology and determination to defend themselves effectively. The Admiral made a decision that went against every instinct developed through decades of military service. Instead of ordering an immediate attack, he chose to learn more about these remarkable beings. The deep scans had revealed that humanity represented either the greatest threat or the greatest opportunity the Empire had encountered in centuries. Maintain defensive positions, but do not initiate hostilities, he commanded the fleet. I want to understand what we are dealing with before we commit to any course of action. For the first time in Imperial history, a Corthony battle group would attempt diplomacy with an alien species rather than immediate conquest. The humans had accomplished something no other civilization had managed in 3 centuries of Imperial expansion. They had earned the respect of warriors who had never before considered any species their equal. Veltar continued his analysis while the fleet maintained its position near the nebula. Every new piece of information about the Guardian and her crew reinforced the conclusion that humanity was unlike any species they had previously encountered. These beings had turned survival into an art form and were prepared for challenges that most civilizations could not even imagine. Counselor Tishra arrived aboard the Divine Retribution 12 hours after Fleet Admiral Zixith had requested diplomatic assistance. As the Empire's most experienced negotiator, she had handled first contact situations with dozens of alien species. However, the briefing materials about the humans suggested this encounter would be unlike any previous diplomatic mission. The counselor studied Veltar's scientific analysis while Admiral Zixith explained the tactical situation. The human vessel remained in the same position, making no aggressive moves but clearly monitoring all Corthony activities. Their passive sensors were sophisticated enough to track individual ships throughout the battle group. What do we know about their intentions? Tishra asked. General Kexith, the fleet's senior tactical officer, displayed battle projections on the command center's main screen. They claimed to be explorers seeking peaceful contact, but their preparations suggest they expected to encounter hostile forces. Every system on their ship serves both civilian and military purposes. The general had spent hours analyzing human defensive capabilities, and the results troubled him deeply. According to his combat simulations, the single Guardian could potentially destroy or disable several Corthony vessels before being overwhelmed. The humans had designed their ship to fight against impossible odds. Dr. Nathan Cross appeared on the main viewing screen as the human ship established another communication link. The alien doctor looked tired, but maintained his friendly expression as he addressed the Corthony leadership. Greetings, Admiral Zixt H. and Counselor Tishra. Cross began in perfect Corthony. I hope our continued presence in your territory has not caused undue concern. Perhaps we could arrange a more formal exchange of information between our peoples. Tishra noted that the human knew her name and titled, despite never being formally introduced. Their intelligence-gathering capabilities were far more advanced than any species the Empire had previously encountered. Dr. Cross, we would be interested in learning more about human civilization, she replied diplomatically. Your technology and social structure appear quite different from other species we have met. Cross smiled and activated a holographic display, showing human history. Images of Earth appeared on the screen, showing a blue and green world that looked remarkably similar to the Korthini homeworld. However, the historical data revealed a planet that had experienced multiple catastrophic events. Our species evolved under challenging conditions, Cross explained. We survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years, plagues that killed large portions of our population, and natural disasters that destroyed entire civilizations. These experiences taught us to prepare for the worst possible scenarios. The historical records showed humans developing increasingly sophisticated weapons and survival technologies. They had progressed from using simple tools to creating planet-destroying weapons within a few thousand years. Most species required much longer to achieve similar technological advancement. We learned early in our development that survival required constant adaptation, Cross continued. Every challenge became a lesson in how to overcome impossible odds. Every disaster taught us to prepare for even worse disasters. Taishra found herself fascinated by human psychology. Most species developed either peaceful or aggressive tendencies based on their evolutionary history. Humans appeared to combine both traits in ways that created unique advantages. Commander Lisa Bennett joined the transmission from the Guardian's bridge. Her presence added a military perspective to the diplomatic conversation. Counselor, we understand that the Korthini Empire has achieved impressive expansion through military superiority. However, we hope our first contact can establish a different type of relationship. General Kexith leaned forward with interest. What type of relationship do you propose? Bennett activated tactical displays showing 17 different battle scenarios. Each simulation demonstrated how the Guardian could engage Korthini forces using strategies that exploited weaknesses in Imperial doctrine. The humans had studied their military tactics and developed specific countermeasures. We could destroy each other, Bennett said matter-of-factly. Your fleet would eventually overwhelm our single ship, but the cost would be severe. Alternatively, we could recognize each other as capable warriors and explore opportunities for mutual benefit. The battle simulations showed human tactics that were completely unpredictable by Korthini standards. They were willing to sacrifice parts of their ship to create kinetic projectiles, use their own life support systems as weapons, and fight effective battles while simultaneously evacuating non-combatants. Admiral Zixith studied the tactical data with professional appreciation. Your people have developed remarkable military capabilities for a species that claims to be explorers. Captain Jake Morrison appeared on the screen beside his officers. Admiral, every human ship carries families and civilians because space exploration requires permanent settlements on new worlds. We cannot establish colonies by sending only soldiers. However, everyone aboard our vessels understands that survival sometimes requires fighting. Morrison displayed psychological profiles of his crew members. Teachers, engineers, doctors, and even children showed training in combat techniques and survival skills. The entire human civilization appeared to be organized around the principle that peaceful purposes must be defended by military capabilities. Our philosophy is simple, Morrison continued. We prepare for peace, but train for war. We hope for the best, but plan for the worst. We seek friendship with all species, but stand ready to fight any who threaten innocent lives. Taishra realized that humanity represented something new in galactic civilization. They were neither purely peaceful nor purely aggressive. They had created a society that could switch between exploration and warfare as circumstances required. Dr. Cross shared more information about human technological development. Their manufacturing capabilities allowed them to adapt existing equipment for new purposes within hours. Their modular designs meant that scientific instruments could become weapons in life. Support systems could become defensive shields. We have encountered 17 different spacefaring species during our expansion into this region of the galaxy, Cross revealed. Each contact taught us new lessons about survival and adaptation. We study every civilization we meet and incorporate useful techniques into our own technology. This information disturbed the Korthuni leadership greatly. 17 species suggested that human expansion was much more extensive than they had realized. If humans had been studying multiple civilizations, their knowledge base was far more comprehensive than any single species could achieve alone. General Kexith ran new combat simulations based on the expanded information about human capabilities. The results showed that conventional Korthoni tactics would be largely ineffective against opponents who combined unpredictability with advanced technology and desperate determination. "Your people fight like cornered predators," he observed. Morrison nodded. "General, every human carries the genetic memory of ancestors who survived by refusing to surrender, even when defeat seemed certain. We have learned that the most dangerous enemy is one who has nothing left to lose." The conversation revealed that humanity had weaponized concepts that most species considered impossible to militarize. They turned their own willingness to die into a tactical advantage. They converted peaceful exploration equipment into military hardware. They even used their family relationships as motivation for desperate combat effectiveness. Counselor T realized that the Empire faced a choice that had never before been necessary. They could attempt to conquer humanity through traditional military action and suffer losses that might cripple Imperial expansion for decades. Alternatively, they could recognize humans as equals and explore the benefits of alliance with a species that had solved survival challenges in completely original ways. The human transmission ended with Morrison making a final observation. "Counselor, Admiral, General, we believe that truly strong civilizations are those that can adapt to changing circumstances. The galaxy is a dangerous place filled with unknown threats. Perhaps our peoples could benefit from sharing knowledge and resources." As the screen went dark, Tishra knew that the Empire's expansion philosophy would need fundamental revision. Humanity had demonstrated that peaceful intentions backed by desperate military capability could be more effective than traditional conquest doctrine. The question now was whether Korthani pride would allow them to accept this new reality. Fleet Admiral Zixith stood in his private chambers aboard the Divine Retribution, staring at the star charts that showed 3 centuries of Korthoni expansion. Red markers indicated conquered systems, while blue symbols showed species that had been enslaved or destroyed. In all those years of Imperial growth, they had never encountered a situation like this. The door chimed in. Counselor Tishra entered the room. Her expression showed the same uncertainty that troubled the Admiral. Traditional diplomatic protocols provided no guidance for dealing with a species that combined peaceful exploration with desperate military preparedness. "The Council has reviewed all intelligence gathered about the humans," she reported. "They are divided on how to proceed. Some members believe we should demonstrate Imperial strength through immediate military action. Others think we should attempt to understand these aliens before making irreversible decisions." Zixith activated a holographic display showing comparative analysis between human and Korthoni capabilities. Veltar's latest scans reveal that their single ship carries technology equivalent to our most advanced research facilities. If they possess dozens of similar vessels throughout this region, attacking them could be extremely costly. The Admiral had never faced a decision with such far-reaching consequences. Imperial doctrine called for immediate conquest of any species that might pose a future threat. However, the humans had demonstrated capabilities that made conventional conquest strategies potentially suicidal. "What troubles me most is their unpredictability," Tishra said. "Every species we have encountered followed logical patterns of behavior. The humans appear capable of changing their tactics and technology in real time to meet new challenges. General Kexith entered the chamber, carrying updated tactical assessments. His usually confident demeanor showed signs of strain from hours of analyzing impossible military scenarios. The general had built his career on predicting enemy behavior and developing counter-strategies, but human tactics defied all conventional military logic. "Admiral, I have completed comprehensive war games, using all available data about human capabilities," he reported. "The results are disturbing. Even if we achieve complete victory, our losses would be severe enough to compromise Imperial expansion for decades." Sixth studied the casualty projections with growing concern. The humans appeared willing to fight until every member of their species was dead, rather than accept conquest. Their psychological profiles showed that they viewed death in battle as preferable to slavery or subjugation. "What if we offered them favorable terms for peaceful coexistence?" Taishra suggested. Before anyone could respond, proximity alarms sounded throughout the ship. Emergency signals indicated that unknown vessels had entered the combat zone. The tactical display showed 3 new contacts approaching from different directions, their energy signatures matching no known species in Imperial databases. "All hands." 2 battle stations, Zixith commanded, as they rushed to the bridge. The main viewing screen showed sleek vessels that moved with predatory grace through space. Their hulls appeared to be grown rather than constructed, with organic curves that suggested biotechnology far in advance of either human or Korthoni science. Scanner readings revealed massive weapon systems and defensive capabilities that exceeded anything in Imperial experience. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the unknown vessels," the communications officer reported. The screen filled with the image of a creature that looked like a cross between an insect and a machine. Multiple eyes studied the Korthoni bridge while mechanical appendages moved with hypnotic precision. When it spoke, the voice carried overtones that suggested artificial intelligence enhanced by biological components. "Korthoni Empire vessels and human exploration ship, you have entered territory claimed by the Nexus Collective. Your presence here violates our expansion protocols. Prepare to be eliminated." Zixith felt ice form in his stomach. The Nexus Collective was a name from Imperial intelligence files, representing one of the most dangerous threats in known space. They consumed entire civilizations to fuel their expansion, leaving behind dead worlds stripped of all useful resources. The alien vessels began charging their weapons systems. Energy readings showed firepower capable of destroying both the Guardian and the entire Korthoni battle group within minutes. Admiral Zixt faced the possibility of watching his fleet be annihilated, while achieving nothing. "Guardian, this is Admiral Zixt," he transmitted on an open channel. "We are facing a mutual threat. Request immediate tactical coordination." Captain Morrison's voice responded instantly. "Understood, Admiral. Guardian standing by for joint operations." What followed was the most remarkable display of military adaptation Zixt had witnessed in his career. The human ship immediately began transmitting detailed tactical data about Nexus Collective capabilities, including weaknesses that Korthoni intelligence had never identified. Their databases contained information gathered from encounters with the Collective throughout human expansion territory. Commander Bennett coordinated defensive strategies that combined Korthoni energy weapons with human kinetic projectiles in ways that maximized damage against Nexus armor. The humans had fought these creatures before and understood their tactical patterns. "Admiral, the Collective ships rely on regenerative hull technology," Bennett transmitted. "Sustained energy attacks allow them to adapt and become immune. However, kinetic impacts at relativistic speeds cause structural damage they cannot easily repair." The Guardian moved into formation with the Korthon vessels, its adaptive systems synchronizing with Imperial shield frequencies to create overlapping defensive coverage. Chief Engineer Rodriguez worked with Korthoni technical specialists to modify weapon systems in real time. Combining technologies from both civilizations, The battle that followed demonstrated human military philosophy in action. When Nexus weapons disabled the Guardian's main engines, the crew immediately reconfigured their manufacturing systems to produce emergency thrusters. When their primary weapons were damaged, they converted mining equipment into makeshift kinetic cannons. Most remarkably, when the Corthoni cruiser Honor's Edge suffered critical damage and began drifting helplessly toward enemy fire, the Guardian positioned itself between the disabled ship and the Nexus vessels. Captain Morrison ordered his crew to use their own hull as a shield, while Guardian personnel worked to repair the alien vessel's life support systems. "Captain Morrison, withdraw your ship," Admiral Zixith commanded. "We cannot ask you to sacrifice your people for our vessel." Morrison's response came without hesitation. "Admiral, no one dies alone while Guardian is here. We don't abandon allies in battle." Dr. Cross led medical teams aboard the damaged Corthoni cruiser, treating wounded aliens with the same care he would show his own crew. Lieutenant Turner coordinated rescue operations, while Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez worked alongside Corthoni engineers to restore critical systems. The humans fought with desperate creativity that turned every disaster into a tactical opportunity. When Nexus boarding pods breached the Guardian's hull, the crew used the hull breach itself as a weapon by venting atmosphere to propel kinetic projectiles at enemy vessels. When their adaptive armor was overwhelmed, they reconfigured it to become explosive reactive plating. General Kexith watched human tactics with professional amazement. They fight like every battle is their last battle, and every enemy might be impossible to defeat. They have contingency plans for contingency plans. The turning point came when the combined human Cortheni fleet managed to disable one Nexus vessel through coordinated attacks. Instead of allowing the enemy to self-destruct, human boarding teams captured the ship intact and transmitted its technical specifications to both fleets. "Guardian, to all vessels," Morrison announced. "We have identified critical vulnerabilities in collective command and control systems. Concentrate fire on the neural network nodes located at these coordinates." The information allowed the Allied forces to disable the remaining Nexus ships through precision strikes rather than brute force attacks. What had seemed like an impossible battle became a decisive victory through human intelligence gathering and Corthoni firepower working together as the last enemy vessel drifted powerless in space. Admiral Zixith realized that everything about Imperial expansion doctrine would need to change. The humans had demonstrated that cooperation between different species could achieve results impossible for any single civilization. "Guardian, this is Admiral Zixith," he transmitted. "The Corthoni Empire owes you a debt that cannot easily be repaid. Your people fought for our survival when you had no obligation to do so." Captain Morrison appeared on the screen looking tired, but satisfied. "Admiral, we fought for our own survival as much as yours. The Nexus Collective threatens all organic life in this region. Working together was the only logical choice." Counselor Tishra established a formal communication link to begin diplomatic negotiations. "Captain, the Empire would be honored to discuss formal alliance agreements between our peoples. We have much to learn from human military philosophy and technological adaptation." Dr. Cross joined the diplomatic transmission with a proposal that would have seemed impossible hours earlier. "Counselor, we would welcome cultural and technological exchange programs. Our children could benefit from learning Corthoni engineering principles, while your young people might find human adaptability training useful." The conversation that followed established the framework for the first true alliance in Corthoni history. Rather than conquering humanity, the Empire would learn from them. Instead of fearing human unpredictability, they would embrace it as a strategic advantage against common threats. Veltar transmitted his final analysis of human capabilities to Imperial Command, with a warning that spread throughout Corthoni civilization. "These beings have weaponized concepts we never considered They turn every weakness into strength, every disaster into opportunity, and every battle into preparation for worse battles ahead." They are simultaneously the most peaceful and most dangerous species we have encountered, the Guardian resumed. Its exploration mission 3 days later, but now carried Corthoni observers who were learning human survival techniques. The exchange went both directions, as human crew members studied Imperial technology and military organization. Admiral Zixt updated Imperial expansion protocols to include procedures for identifying species that might benefit from alliance rather than conquest. The encounter with humanity had taught the Empire that true strength came from cooperation between different types of warriors, rather than domination of weaker opponents. Captain Morrison recorded his final log entry about the first contact incident with satisfaction. The Corthoni Empire has proven that warrior cultures can recognize and respect each other's strengths. They have shown that true military leaders adapt their strategies when they encounter new types of opponents. This alliance will benefit both our peoples as we face the unknown challenges that await us among the stars. The Guardian disappeared into hyperspace, carrying representatives from 2 civilizations that had learned they were stronger together than apart. Behind them, the Corthoni fleet returned to Imperial space with knowledge that would change their society forever. The galaxy had become a smaller and more cooperative place, because 2 warrior cultures had chosen understanding over conquest.